So we're ready to get started here. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tom Nevers Beautification Public Outreach. We appreciate you taking your time to come here this afternoon. My name is Cheryl Emery. I am the chair of Nantucket Park and Recreation Commission, and I'm here today as a concerned citizen. This is a community organized event. It is not a town sanctioned event. I wanted everybody to know that. Today's format will consist of a presentation by Elizabeth O'Rourke, a 20-year resident of Tom Nevers. Elizabeth is an accomplished landscape architect. Her company is Jardin International. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
When I look around Tom Nevers Field, I see beautiful views, and I see the need for improvements. We look forward to hearing your comments and suggestions and ideas following the presentation. Last, we will hear from Rich Turr from Nantucket Community Park and Recreation, Nantucket CPR, how you can help. Now I'd like to thank Elizabeth and her team for all their efforts and energy they put into this. And I'd like to introduce Elizabeth O'Rourke.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Catch my breath for a second. So I don't know if you know, but Cheryl doesn't necessarily want to hear this, but she was co-created the Nantucket Music Festival a few years back, and that's when she became cognizant of the state this part of the piece of land had fallen under. After all, beautiful park and open spaces are markers of a healthy community. Children come to play, families spend time together, people of all ages come to exercise and relax. And the beauty and security of a beautiful park and open space contributes to the value of its neighborhood. Conversely, neglected, dangerous, poorly maintained, or designed open spaces and parks have the opposite effect. Young children and their families stay away, illicit activities begin to proliferate, and the place might become an eyesore. People will stay away and feel unwelcome. So to have a thriving park system and open spaces, we need adequate funding, we need it to be a reflection of what the community needs, and we need good management. So Cheryl approached me and see if I would be interested in working together on coming up with a plan for this area. So because I am a Nantucket resident of 22 years, I have a home in Tom Nevers, because I'm her friend, and it's hard for me to say no, and because I own a landscape architecture firm, I agreed. At about the same time, Maya Kodolak, who's a 10th generation Nantucket native, who's also a student of landscape architecture at UC Berkeley, was reaching out to me and see if she could work with our firm for the summer. So I proposed to her working together on studying this place and see if we could come up with some kind of a loose master plan for it, and she agreed. She was really interested in that specific field of landscape architecture. So together we came up with a loose sort of general goals for this place, and so one is to care for the space that we own as a community. Two is to provide a beautiful and safe place for us to enjoy recreation. And three is to create a general master plan that makes sense with the resources that we have, and that will benefit our community as a whole. So today Maya will present to you some of the information that we've organized and gathered thus far. She's broken it down into sections. So first will be the general geolocation of the place, a little bit of the history of the site. Then we'll look at some of the past usage this place has had, some of the current usage. We'll do a pretty in-depth site analysis. And we're going to discuss maybe phasing, like how might we approach this project, you know, to sort of get it off the ground. And also kind of reiterate the goals that we have for it. So I think that covers it, right? So here she is to present you the best one.
Thank you for the introduction. So everyone, I assume, has a packet, and it will follow along exactly with the presentation, so you can see whatever you like. On this front page, this is the worst part of erosion in Tom Nevers, and it rightfully sets the tone for the site analysis that we're going to go through today.
Could you speak a little louder?
Yes,
Thank you.
This is a page of content, so if you ever need to refer back to anything during the public outreach, then you can use this. I just want to start with a little bit of context. Tom Nevers is located in the southeast quarter of Nantucket Island, and more specifically off of Milestone Road at the end of Tom Nevers Road, next to the ocean.
Maybe a little.
Microphone. This is an existing site plan of Tom Nevers as the 21 acres as it is right now. For some orientation, you can see Tom Nevers comes into the east. So Tom Nevers Road comes into the east with the baseball and softball fields to the north of the site and the beach and ocean to the south. This is a general timeline of the major points of history about Tom Nevers. I'm just gonna go over a key few points that are necessary for what we're doing here today. So in 1954, the Navy purchased the land for oceanographic research, mapping the ocean floor, and as a target range practice location. In 1980, town
That's not true.
Oh, it's not?
No, but go on.
In 1980, the town purchased the property back. In 1995, a Tom Nevers reuse plan was proposed by Horiuchi and Solian Landscape Architects. In 2006, Tom Nevers Civic Association was created.
Actually, it was 1970.
1970, okay, wow. But they also, I think, believe around this time that they created a greater plan for Tom Nevers was at this time, in 2006. Right. In 2010, the government began an investigation into leftover ammunition and hazardous material in the greater Tom Nevers area. In 2015, the government concluded its cleanup for leftover ammunition, and over 900 rocket shells and pieces of shrapnel were recovered. Not one of the collected items posed a potential threat to explode, nor did they contain any hazardous material inside of them. This does not mean that there are no potentially explosive ammunition shells left in the area, though it does lower the chances significantly. Presently, Tom Nevers is used for a mix of recreational activities by a mixed demographic. Some of the specific activities include softball leagues, the annual island fair, loose recreational activity, beach access, and the playground is used by visiting children, as well as several other activities that we can talk about later. Here are a few historical photos that are just interesting, found in a brochure when the Tom Nevers Lodge was here in the early 1900s. It's interesting because the top photo is a train station that used to come out here for public access. And below is a picture of the Tom Nevers Lodge itself. And the tower was used for people to go up and physically see the land that they might buy out here. And that was the purpose of it. This photo is interesting because you can see the lodge on the bluff and the boardwalk coming down and how extensive this beach is with the dense vegetation and how different it is from today. It's such a smaller beach today with the same height bluff. This is the 1995 reuse plan that was proposed by Horiuchi and Solian Landscape Architects. It's pretty similar to how Tom Nevers is today, though a lot of things in this plan weren't built and some things are built in different places. This red line, the dotted line demarcates the top of the bank today, and the solid line demarcates the coastline where the water is today. So you can see in a matter of 20 years how much land has been lost just from where they planned it to be. It's encroaching into their plan just from 1995. This is a diagram of the program on Tom Nevers, and it's very simple. We'll just go through just so everyone's on the same page about some of the land use that's happening here. So let's go here. So number 1 is the baseball field. Number 2 is the softball field. Number 3 is the demolition derby right here. Number 4 is the bunker. Number 5 is the open field where the fairgrounds happens. Number 6 is an open pavement space. Number 7 are the sand bottom playground. Number 8 are the bathrooms. 9 is the roller hockey rink. Number 10 is dirt parking adjacent to the roller hockey rink. Number 10 is the dirt bike track. 11. Number 12 is dirt parking. 13 is the metal warehouse. 14 is Nantucket Conservation Land Foundation land that they own, and then 15 is the Nantucket Housing Authority property. So this landscape is extremely vast in their ocean views from almost all points of it. So I just wanted to highlight some of the opportunities that we have here and how these views can be enhanced. These 3 photos are views from 3 different locations on the property. They're going to point to the ocean, but they're also obstructed by leftover infrastructure and pavement, and they could be extremely improved with the removal of this pavement and remediation of vegetation. These are existing bathrooms on the site. They're functional, but they're extremely low maintained, both internally and externally. And they're located on the center of the site between all facilities and are still used today by everyday goers. This is the bunker. It has an interesting history because it was originally built for JFK as a potential hideout during the Cold War, but he never actually had to come, and it's gone through a series of uses since then. Now it's used as storage. And now it mostly acts as a novelty more than anything else during the Island Fair. People like to go inside of it and see what's inside because it's kind of an island mystery. And it has a sort of picturesque value to this landscape as well, with the opening and the change in topography. People can stand on top of it and then that's right. Very popular. So the softball fields and baseball fields are heavily used by both the leagues and everyday goers. There's a clear gap between maintenance between the softball field and the not softball field. You can see how healthy the grass is, and this creates a dissonance in the park about where people might be allowed to go, where they're not allowed to go, and it promotes unsafe behavior in these places. This is the metal warehouse. It's a storage facility that, to my knowledge, is mostly emptied out right now. It's a wooden structure plated in rusty metal, and it's also located in the center of the property. It doesn't have much use right now. This is the roller hockey rink. This is another heavily used facility. It was originally built for hockey, but is now used for several different sports, such as indoor soccer and basketball as well. But despite its heavy use, it's in a poor state, it's unmaintained. It's also an impermeable surface, increasing runoff and exacerbating erosion. And it also is vulnerable to encroaching erosion. It will eventually fall off the cliff. The dirt bike track has been used for ATV and dirt biking, which has a strong community on the island. Unfortunately, its low maintenance and proximity to the ocean raises issues with ripping up vegetation, weakening sediment, and ultimately increasing vulnerability to erosion. There's also an empty ammunition bunker on this bottom photo. This is interesting because as a part of the government's cleanup, they left a lot of the infrastructure behind and got rid of ammunition, but instead of removing infrastructure, they put signs above warning people of this hazard. And you can see pretty clearly here, they kind of put it right on top of an ammunition bunker. So it's another issue we have to solve here, getting rid of some of that stuff.
This is going into the ocean.
Yeah, this is right on the bluff. The beach is where the picture was taken from. So there's a playground in the center with a sand bottom. It's made out of metal and plastic. It's heavily used by visiting children, but its location on this property is super exposed to environmental conditions like wind and salt spray, so it's rusting really heavily, and kids are grabbing onto it and playing on it and cutting themselves, and it's creating a serious hazard. Playing off that, this site is in a ruinous condition in general. There are leftover concrete foundations, there's vandalism and leftover infrastructure scattered around the property from the old Navy base. And it creates an unfriendly environment and it provides opportunities for unsafe behavior here, which is not what we want for a park. Even more so, one of the most defining factors of the site is rapid erosion along the coast. This top picture is the location where the worst erosion is. There are also leftover foundations sticking out of the cliff. This is from when previous Navy buildings were to be removed. The concrete foundations were neglected to be removed. So now they're starting to come out of the cliffside as the erosion permits. This bottom picture also exemplifies some wire sticking out of the cliff, and is just another hazardous aspect of the erosion. So this diagram lays out exactly what is happening with erosion on the site. Right now, the average rate is about -9 feet per year. But you can see from this diagram that erosion is pretty episodic. Some years it will grow past what it was before, other years it will lose more than it ever has. So it's really hard to tell and project what is going to happen. But this white line on here is a projection coast for the year 2080. And this is based on historical erosion patterns as well as increasing erosion from growing climate change. So within this period, it's projected to lose -350 feet in 60 years, which is within my lifetime and your children's lifetime. And then these hatched areas on the diagram represent impermeable surfaces, whether it's pavement, concrete foundations, or existing structures. And this is actually contributing to some of the erosion. The location of the worst erosion in that picture that we're familiar with is right here. And what's happening is precipitation is landing on it, and instead of being able to permeate into the ground, it's running off and running down the bluff and increasing the erosion. And so it's rapid right there, and as it encroaches on the rest of the pavement, it will make us reach this 350 mark much sooner than we would like without removing the pavement. This is a simple existing vegetation diagram. The vegetation here is really minimal due to the previous use of the Navy base, as well as strong environmental exposure. There's a mix of maintained lawn with the sports fields, as well as more organic plant communities scattered around, primarily native species. There's a strong dune system along the bluff with beach pea that is a strong nitrogen fixer, as well as dune grass that promotes erosion control. And this strong habitat right now does indicate that erosion has slowed down in the past few years, but it doesn't indicate that it won't get worse in coming years. Here are a few photos of some examples of the vegetation. On the top is the dune system with beach pea and dune grass. The middle is a native meadow that's currently there. This is usually mowed down for larger events that happen on the site. And below are the few trees that happen to survive on the site from the wind and salt spray. This is a diagram of the microclimate based on the months June through August in the summertime, so when the park is most heavily used. The windrows in the bottom indicates that the prevailing winds are from the south and southwest. So based on this, I've located spots on the site that are either more exposed to the wind or more enclosed based on topography and vegetation. So for example, in the northeast corner, a dip in topography behind the bunker creates a more enclosed space protected from the wind, whereas on top of the bunker, you're exposed to all environments and it's much cooler. So to just summarize all of the things that we've just gone through, we've identified a few predominant site issues that we want to focus on for this project, and that is erosion, deteriorating infrastructure, and disorganization of program. And to reiterate what Elizabeth said at the beginning, our main goals are to embrace a dynamic landscape, care for the space we own as a community, provide a beautiful and safe place to recreate, create a master plan considering our resources at hand, and design a place that benefits our community as a whole. We believe the best way to carry out this project is to create phases. So with these previous goals in mind, we created a phasing outline for how this might play out. And right now we're in phase 1 where we're generating interest to improve Tom Nervous Field, site analysis and research. And then we'll go into design and cost analysis for the logistics, and then we'll go into more physical phases of this park with cleanup and eventually grading changes, bringing back in circulation and facilities as we go. So with that, I'd like to open up discussion to everyone here. Feel free to ask questions, express your concerns, give advice. And there's also a public outreach survey that you are free to fill out, and you can leave here or you can send it in later on. I'll also be emailing it as a PDF document to everyone if you send your new email. So thank you for listening.
Can we go back to your map of the overall plan there that you're showing the tar and stuff like that?
The erosion?
Yeah, well, that one's pretty good. That's good. Okay. So, a couple of years ago, the town of Nantucket repaved this so they could do bus surveys and, get people to get their licenses. They set up lines and stuff like that. So they retarred that. Personally, this drain over here that you show, we have been after the town of Nantucket for years to take that out, completely take out all of this tar right here, because the only thing this tar is doing is falling into the beach, and it's ugly. It's just ugly. The next thing is, there used to be a huge ammunition building here. Back in 1982 or 3, I took this building down. The town wanted me to bury it. So I dug up all this stuff under here and piled it up. This building came down, we buried it, we put all the soil back over. So the little bit of stuff you see here is never going to end until it gets to here. All right? I think the first thing we need to do is just get rid of all this tar and turn it into grass. Maybe right here where the parking lot is, where people come to the beach, take all this tar out to here, make a new road into here, and so it's pleasant. Eventually, it's going to be a disaster. But I mean, these are things that I'm just some facts that you probably don't know. As far as that little building there, I think that's kind of cute. Yeah, there's graffiti in there and stuff like that, but I don't know what else anybody wants to have a question for me about something there.
How deep is that material that was buried?
What's that?
How deep is the excavation that you?
Probably about 4 or 5 feet. There's probably 5 feet of soil on top of it.
And that area is what in dimension? I can't remember.
Dimension is from here, this whole area right here. These buildings were enormous. They were like 3 feet thick. It was an ammunition bunker. It was enormous.
Did you happen, I had heard from the bunker there was a tunnel that went down to the beach. Did you ever come across anything
No.
like that?
No
Is there any
tunnel.
truth to that? Or-
I don't think there's a tunnel in there.
Yeah, then you didn't tunnel.
Any more questions? Come on, guys. I'm just, I think honestly, I think if we got rid of the tar right here, we wouldn't have this problem here. Take the tar out, pitch it towards the inside here, and take it all out up in here. And there's like the tar is broken right here, and it's pitched this way. Take it out to here, change the shape right here, take out some of these tires that are in here, reshape it this way so there's a nice parking lot. And then as it goes back, we'll have to deal with it. But I honestly don't know what the, go ahead.
What do you think about all the other cement that's just kind of all over
Well,
the place?
this cement up in here used to be a huge bunker. And honestly, that can come, that can go out. I don't know why they never took it out. I think it was a budget thing. But it's just a huge slab that was a bunker. And they never took it out because of budget. They took out the stuff closest to the ocean.
That wasn't in your contract?
What was that?
That wasn't in your
No,
contract?
that wasn't in the contract. And that's back, in the early 80s with Bud Clute and stuff like that. And, no, yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job. I mean, the stuff was gonna fall in the ocean. So he got rid of it the cheapest way he could. I don't think he could foresee the erosion, honestly. I mean, I don't think anybody could foresee all the erosion that we've had.
What's your business?
What's that?
What's your business that you do?
At that time, it was Holgate and Coletti.
But
Yeah,
if anything is done there, who is going to pay for this?
Right.
well, that's a good question. Well, right now, it's town property. That
Right.
building,
belongs to 21
this building
acres.
over in here that you don't like, the town stores all their stuff in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can you take us through the phases and give us an idea, if you actually had budget to make this happen, how long we're talking about, or how long does each of the phases take?
So obviously the first two phases would be, shouldn't be that long because, the actual work isn't that involved. But in terms of infrastructure, removal, you have to have sort of a willing town, a willing budget to see these things through. And so, if things are just gonna get buried and I'm gonna wait for the erosion to come and take it away, or are you?
Let's assume that you did have a budget. I'm just trying to get an idea. Is this 50 years we're looking at, or is it 5 years?
I think a 5-year would be,
5 years. If you had the money,
Yeah.
it would be a 5-year plan.
yeah,
Okay.
4 to 5.
Where was the money coming from?
No, we're just saying.
If you had it.
If you
Oh, from us.
How long would it take?
From us. Okay. And what are you thinking, like, how are you, are you doing like Tom Nevers East and the Civic Association? So we have 250 houses over there. I don't know what's on the Civic Association. Dual, how many houses?
Couple of hundred.
Couple hundred, so we're talking, let's say 500 houses. What would you assess every house
No.
to do a project? Is that what you're talking about?
But the thing is that this is a town space. It's a town space, so Tom Nevers residents use it, but I think the community at large uses it. And it's one of our assets. So what do we do with this asset? Do we just kind of let it flush down the ocean with all the debris and all the pollution it will create? Or do we nurture what we have and care for it and allocate resources towards that?
Could I ask a question? But in preparation for the question, as you may know, a real hazard is getting to the field. And we have been pushing for years and years and years to get a bike path because it's dangerous. The town will not allow to pay that. We're way down the list.
Right.
So to get this prioritized when they won't even prioritize the bike path is a long struggle.
But I would.
Well, let's talk to them. I'm sure that you've talked to the town. What has their feedback been so far?
We've gotten an
Well-
estimate, I believe, for the bike path.
Yeah, from Joel, it's like $1.5 million or something to get there.
For the first phase.
But with all due respect, in regards to the bike path, like I live in Tom Nevers, and I understand it'd be wonderful to have a bike path and go there and feel completely safe. But there is a nice road that goes there. It's a straight road.
But if you walk with a baby carriage,
I understand, but if I look at the state of the road and I look at the state of this park needs more attention.
okay, so anyway, my real question, my real question is one should always look at the final goal.
Yeah.
All of this is leading to phase 6. I think this electricity for larger events is a big red flag in the mind
agree.
of most Tom Nevers residents.
By Marjorie?
And this other word in here, which is goals, community as a whole, not an exclusive few. What activities do you envision going on once this is all done?
The Island Fair.
Yeah,
That's already going
by
on.
large events, we mean the Island Fair and things that already happen there. We're not planning to make this a venue spot. We're not planning to make this a place where thousands and thousands of people are going to come to things. When we say big events, we mean the Island Fair that's been happening for 160 years or something.
Right.
There was a weekend concert a few years ago there.
Right.
That's not happening.
It was a music festival that was a
So when I have asked
Okay.
people,
That was here.
what prevents you from using the field more often? The first thing they say is when you get to Tom Nevers Road, you gotta go on this pothole thing to get around and into it. That's late in this program. It's also, we would like to have picnics there. If you live in Tom Nevers, many of the places, upside down houses, cannot have open fires on their deck. Being able to have barbecues and family events there are kinds of things that people tell me about. So I'm kind of curious about this larger events and exactly what kind of activities, when it seems to me there's some short-term things that would encourage greater usage. Now maybe you're saying that with all the debris, it could be dangerous for greater usage.
Well, we're
But
definitely thinking about picnicking and grilling and playing, ball games and maybe moving away from more structured games and for a looser, sort of a looser park that lends itself to various uses. So less prescriptive, more
Family oriented.
More passive.
Yeah.
Well, I have one immediate concern that I think the town can address very simply. When you come to the end of Tom Nevers Road, you get these giant cement blocks. There is no signage that says road ends 500 feet. It is foggy out there. And not everybody knows Tom Nevers like we all do. Even reflectors on those cement blocks, something to let people know that you're going to get smashed, if you keep going. And I agree with Jack that, you gotta go all the way around. Can't you just cut it through? But I understand that it's probably because the water is right there. But that's a big concern for me. I just don't like that there's no signage. I don't even know if they do it at the end of Matticat Road, that they have those big cement blocks, and does it say end road?
No.
Okay, so we have to be a little bit more careful. I don't even know if the town has liability insurance for the mess that's out there. There's things sticking out, or you're at a fair and you trip.
I've been
and-
really shocked that the town has not been more concerned about liability out there with those rusty farm implements that are not in any way scenic. I mean, there's spiky, sharp things. I've seen little kids riding their bikes over to them and getting off and playing on them.
But there's
I just don't think they should even be there. But
There's
the
also
town-
spikes that are just sticking out when you're trying to just walk and recreate.
Yeah.
I mean, I know somebody who just worked for the town, and she says, I can't believe we got this insurance. I don't know either, get liability insurance for something that is so obvious.
So to get back to the original question, you've had conversations with the town about this? Yes?
Yes.
What has been, and they understand that there was money associated with it. Was there any discussion on their part about, yeah, this is something we should really do, like a new school? Or was it like, thank you very much for your time, we'll get back to you? Where were they in terms of their interest?
I can tell you a little bit about that. I did speak with Libby, and they were talking about bringing up for the 2019 budget, which starts July 1st, 2018 to 2019. So there was some conversation, and so she says everybody's, coming at her at so many directions for money. So we know we need to get something in the budget for this, but we will meet with her again in August to go over more of a master plan with her.
Oh, so this is a
So
discussion?
we're in discussion.
I see, okay.
Yes.
Phase 3, beach nourishment. What are you planning to do about that?
Well, there could be sort of because of the severe erosion that's there.
Yes.
So if there is a real interest in the town in investing and caring, there could be a beach nourishment aspect. There's some interesting work that's taking place on erosion, beach civilization. This is a very dynamic area. The erosion rate is pretty rapid. But there is some work where like the coastal bend gets knocked back. So you take more land, soften the slope, and then you stabilize it with it's like geotextiles, they're anchored in, and it's replanted. I mean, it's pretty involved economically, so we have to see if the town will have an appetite for that. And depending on what kind of capital investment we've done on the park, then we can justify going that route or not.
I think that you should talk to the people in Wisconsin
Yeah.
before you go into anything like this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so your beach nourishment thing. So, we've done most of the work, my company, not my company now, but Holgate Partners, on Baxter Road. Beach nourishment, the island is receding. You can't do beach nourishment here and not here. You gotta let Mother Nature do its thing. In the winter, the beach comes, everybody lives in Tom Nevis, sees it, it's direct, 6 feet down. Everybody comes in the summer, oh gosh, look, we got 100 feet of beach. That is not something, we have to let that happen. We just have to let that happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we're not in town where, you know, in Shimo or Monomoy where you have bulkheads, or down Hobart Avenue or anything like that. I understand that there. But on the South Shore, it can't happen. You've got to let Mother Nature just do its thing and leave it alone, because whatever you do here, you're going to exaggerate on this side and that side.
But we're just
You just have to leave it alone.
I completely agree with you. I'm on the same page. I think that erosion, I mean, this island's projected to be underwater in 200 years, which is kind of crazy. But I think when we're talking about beach nourishment, we're not saying we're going to stop the erosion. We're thinking that when we remove all of this infrastructure and pavement, we're going to move around a lot of dirt, and a lot of sediment's going to be very, very loose. So say we do it in the fall and then the winter comes and then the whole thing's gone because it's so loose that the ocean took it. So we're saying that just to balance out our actions, it will be the same rate of erosion, but to balance out us moving all this infrastructure so that we can continue.
I agree with you. The other thing is, beach nourishment, the sand has to come from someplace. You're not allowed to do burrow pits on the island anymore. There's only Miles Reese and Holgate Partners left. There are millions of yards that have left each place. They're almost exterminated, both of them. And they have to do concrete for the island. We have a building boom, so they got the sand for the concrete and stuff like that. You can't just throw sand into the ocean and watch it go. It's not happening anymore. If you think you're gonna bring sand over on a barge to throw on to the beach, you guys are delirious. I'm serious.
What we're doing.
All right, let her rip. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I'm the one that sends out all the annoying emails to the Tom Everest Association, in case anybody wants to know. But I just wanted to say that I've gotten feedback from people that couldn't come to the meeting, and I promised I'd share it because I wasn't early. So a couple of things that I heard, I've already heard. The people like the playground, but understand, yes, that needs to be fixed. The safety issues are bad there. The bathrooms could be improved. The tarmac, the car along the coastline, the same thing that was said before. Yeah, that needs to come out, and the things sticking out to make the safety issues, especially along the beach. And then another person so other people said, yes, get those farm implements out of there. They don't really do anything, and they are hazardous. And then somebody else had an idea that I hadn't heard of, was if there were going to be some things around that perhaps part of it could be a dog park that would be a secure area for people to put their dogs. So those are the things that I got from feedback from the Tom Nevers Civic Association residents who could not be here and asked me to pass that on.
Thank you so much.
I'm curious how you feel about the skate rink and the basketball court and condition of the bathrooms and some of the the lack of picnic tables and.
I think there'd be very few people who wouldn't want to see a project like this take place. I don't think that's the issue. I don't think anybody says, oh no, let's just leave it like it is. If we had the opportunity to do something like this. If that's your question, does anybody vehemently object to the idea of beautifying Tom Nevers, whether it be this or whether it be something else? I think.
I know the skate rink, it was really important to some people. I've heard that. They don't want that to disappear because they use it. So, you know, that was one.
There's also basketball courts in there that I think add to the recreational value of the area.
The park.
I like the park idea.
Yeah.
You know, and what that conjures up in my mind.
They use it for hockey too.
Picnic tables.
Yeah.
They use it for hockey too.
Yeah.
Barbecue pits.
Yeah, and then barbecue pits. How do you feel about that? Because
I think appropriately protected and designed is fine. For me.
No, I agree with you. I think it's fine.
You know what, we're new homeowners there a couple of years. This large venue idea. I live on Wright's Landing. I could see the baseball field. And my neighbors, I hear some people complaining about the music on Sunday afternoons.
So the Sunday afternoon baseball league is out of control. I've called the cops so many times, and our prevailing winds just carry it over. I mean, it thumps my house. My house literally shakes from the base of the speakers on those trucks.
That's an issue.
It's a huge issue. The cops tell me that it's, you know, it's in the afternoon and until like 7 o'clock or when it starts getting dark. You know, late as it gets darker earlier, they're out by like 7 by Labor Day. But they play, it's not just a summer thing. They play well into the fall and they start early in the spring. There was over 200 people there 2 Labor Days ago having a daytime rave. And I went over and asked them to turn down the music.
Is there not a
You're not alone on that
law? Is there not, can anybody speak to that from the town? Is there not a decibel law that the police have to enforce?
I think the police have told me that it's there's quiet hours, like what's it, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah, but there's still decibel laws in terms of loud music.
It specifies the decibel amount at the property.
Yeah.
And if it exceeds that, the police are supposed to come and.
So how do we know, like, if we call, like, how many decibels we're listening to? I mean, I hold the phone out and I say, listen, I'm a quarter mile away.
The police have devices available to measure the decibels.
That's good to know.
Just want to give a chance to a few people that haven't spoken yet.
How's the housing authority property fit into all of this? And is there anybody know if the town has any plans on building on that property?
So the DPW was interested in having an area out there that they possibly could use to help with snow removal on that part of the island.
Yeah.
We were talking about that.
I sat down with Renee Seeley, and right now the mowed square that is on Housing Authority property is open for parking. It's designated for parking. And then everywhere else, the property that they own actually extends really far back, and it's all protected land because of rare species. But the mowed square is designated for parking, and Renee is actually willing to negotiate anything that we might want to do there to benefit the rest of the park.
Show me what part of the property you're talking about. With the parking.
So, let me see if I.
9 acres.
I know. Yeah, right over there. Okay.
Thank you. So this is the area that the housing authority owns. And in thinking about the erosion that's creeping up this way, we were loosely thinking that if we kept this area more or less free of structures and tried to reroute the road to the far end and keep any facilities to the far end of the lot. You know, don't have to be on a full foundation, it could be on pier, so they could be removed, could be portable toilets. But really keeping this whole area a soft landscape, like the big park that we've tried to sow the seed of a little bit today with our ninjas. So that's kind of the general.
Are you saying remove the ball fields?
No, I think the ball fields are well used, and it's a self-usage. You know, to the extent that you have grassland and people play on it, if erosion comes to that line, you're not creating a huge problem. But if you have these big concrete pits or, you know, buried debris, as we were informed of, you know, that's not so friendly for our beaches, for the ocean, and for us as a community.
I think, I think the parcel that I'm talking about would be like where the 15 is. It's
That's
about
right.
9 acres.
That's right.
And I know that there was maybe something about it being conservation land, but I also know that there was some rumors that they might, at some point, sell that piece, and then it would be like a housing development or low-income housing. And I know a lot of us have faced that, and therefore, if we were to, like, you know, spend money on improvements to our lots or our property, and then to have like a housing development go up, will we be out of pocket on that? I was wondering if there's anything that they can say about that.
Due to the erosion, I think that this is kind of out of,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
what the situation is Housing Authority owns that property right now, and they have, even earlier, and they have never built there because of like erosion and now conservation land. It's still owned by Housing Authority, but it's protected land now. But the square that they have there is not. What Renee was talking about was that ideally she would be willing to swap that piece of land with the town. So the Housing Authority might get another piece of land somewhere else on the island that's more fitting for low-income housing, and then give that property to the town so who use it on their consent. But she doesn't see that happening in the near future.
So do they think it'll just be not built on, or if it is ever built on, just maybe more parkland or something?
Yeah, she doesn't see any structures being.
Can you point out where that square is?
I think it's the 15th piece.
Yeah, the square is right here. You might be familiar when you drive out to Tom Nevers, that right here, yeah.
I know that, but like, you know, that's where we were concerned about, like, you know, dumping money into a space, you know, into improving your house or your lot, and then something going up, and then, you know.
Can anybody speak from the neighborhood or the DPW as to what infrastructure is out there? Is there any water? Is there any sewers? You know, main things that you would need with the development, a housing development? Okay, so there's no sewer, so you're pretty much all on septic, all on
The bathroom has its own septic, there's power and water.
So, yeah, that takes a lot to run.
Yep, I guess the things that I've run into most at that area is the lack of any place for people to put their garbage. And every time I go to the beach, I bring an extra few garbage bags, and even if I go up to where the garbage can be deposited by the bathtub, it can overflow. So I'm not quite sure, like, when does the town pick up the garbage? When do they pick up the garbage?
Once a week, DPW will come in and keep them safe. It's a very long term.
So I would love to see some kind of situation with us being able to recycle the way we like to recycle, and everyone dealing with their garbage.
And we'd like to invite Richard Tur to say a couple words.
Really?
Yeah?
Hi, my name is Rich Tur. I was on the Park and Recreation at the CPC in 2014 and 2015. Hi, Jack. How you doing? Nice to see you. And while this meeting really is all about Tom Evers, because I think it's the most obvious property that the town has that's considered a place for a park and for recreation that's in such disrepair, I think fundamentally, everybody's already addressed some of the bigger issues. Right? Where's the level of funding? Where does this come from a priority for the town of Nantucket? Is this going to be a burden for people or for taxpayers right now? And some of these issues were addressed, or have been addressed for many, many years. Before I speak of this, I just want to use an example. The taxpayers have put a lot of money out, as has the CPC, to build Belvedere Field. You know, a Belvedere Field is used by a lot of people, a lot of islanders, a lot of visitors, etc. There's porta potties out there. There's a transportation crate that came off of a tanker where they store equipment. There's no safe place for storms when kids are there. There's no shades for playing. And that's Belvedere, where there has recently been, investments. So when you look at Tom Nevers, and it's part of my walk when I feel great and take a long walk and go around and walk through Tom Nevers, I'm astounded on the metal that's coming out of the ground, the disrepair of the fields. It's just amazing to me. So what I want to do is just read a sentence or two from a group of concerned folks that live here on an organization that might start to speak to this, because and I also want to speak to the abutters in a second too. But it's the Nantucket Community Park and Recreation, or CPR, is really in its infancy stage of formation, and its mission is to enhance the community through charitable support. I'll get back to that in a second, because there's a lot of competing charities in Island. Charitable support for our parks and recreation, including infrastructure, improving open space. Yes, we have the land bank. Yes, we have conservation trust. I understand that. Recreation facilities, educational events, programs for the arts, etc. We're still tweaking the mission statement. It sounds a little broader. The goal would be one day to model it not unlike the Central Park Conservancy. And I would highly, highly suggest that folks take a look at their website on the Central Park Conservancy. There's a great video that if you take out the words New York City and put in Nantucket, sometimes it's hard to even imagine. But when you're listening to it, take out the words New York City and put in Nantucket. It's a fantastic video, and it was also produced by Columbia University in conjunction. Central Park in the 70s, for those of us that remember a little bit, and when the Bronx was burning, in the late 70s. Central Park, you wouldn't go in when it was dark out. Today, Central Park is really the jewel of the entire Northeast corridor, and this model is viewed internationally. 75% of all funding for Central Park comes from the private sector and corporations, and 25% is still from the city of New York and the taxpayers. And to think that maybe it's possible, but even Park and Recreation became unfunded, I believe, in 2012, Jack. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right year.
I'm not sure of the year, but
12 or
it's
13.
been a while.
The last year it existed, it had a $400,000 budget, which went to zero. And I'm empathetic to having to drive efficiency. If you're a town manager and you have, union contracts and other things, things are much more complicated than sometimes we think they are. But Park and Rec became unfunded. No people, no personnel, nobody that had a special eye for the garbage pails at Tom Nevers. It all got melded into the larger priorities of what's needed on the island. So we're going to continue to have conversations about what this model may look like. There's some members or early board members that are in the room. Maybe we can talk later. I'm really not selling the idea, and we're not asking for anybody to take out their checks. It's not about that. But it's not just Tom Nevers. There's many other needs. Our park should be better for the residents that are here full time. Our field should be better. I was privy to the notion, that they turn the water off at Children's Beach, early in the year because they don't have the staff to mow the lawn. So they purposely want the lawn to get dark and gray and die because they don't have the manpower. I participated in those conversations as a Park and Recreation, as a CPC member. That's not going to be changed tomorrow, but maybe there is an opportunity for a 501c3 model, not unlike the Central Park Conservancy, that can be park specific. I'm going to speak to abutters. When I first came to the island full-time 5 years ago, I still regret today that I missed what I think was maybe the last demolition derby, but if I was an abutter, I'm probably really happy that the demolition derby isn't there anymore. But I do regret that I missed it. And my son used to write for the Yankee Mirror, and he missed writing about that too, so we came just 1 year too late. But if I was in a butter, I'd be looking at this model with the town in a heartbeat. You know, this should have fields that we're proud of. We keep building fields in the middle of the island, not taking advantage of waterfront areas where our children should be able to play, where parents should be able to play, where retirees should be able to go. And we're going to keep sticking them in corners near the airport. And here, there's one of the most beautiful properties we have. Even if 30% goes in the ocean over the next 15 or 20 or 30 years, we have an opportunity to make this beautiful, to not make it noisy, to have the town and police manage it better. Doesn't matter whether it's Tom Evers or any other park in town. The town has a responsibility to be managing that when somebody calls. But this, to me, as a singular model for a Central Park Conservancy like these, if I lived out there, I would seriously want to pursue. Although what we're talking about for the Nantucket CPR is really kind of an island-wide initiative, and then you could have some verticals. There could be one for Children's Beach and the jetties. Sorry, that's my new phone. Sorry, but it is a beautiful ring. My wife likes it much better. Sorry about that. So, Cheryl, I appreciate that. I didn't know I was literally going to be on the agenda. But real big issue, no easy solution. Even talking about fixing this park with the ammunitions, from what I read 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, my guess is anytime somebody's going to start putting a bulldozer in there, it's going to get more complicated with the U.S. government and the military and all of those things. Could be wrong, but boy, it's an embarrassment. And boy, we should be proud of one of the few remaining places that's on the water that provides recreation and a view and a vista. And I just don't really think that. We have a couple selectmen in the room. I can't see writing $1 million checks to fix Tom Evers over the next 3 to 5 years. Could be wrong. But grants, 501c3, nonprofit initiatives, maybe could really do an amazing thing for this problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you everyone for coming today, for showing your interest in this. I think we need to keep the conversation.
Well, next steps.
Yeah, I think,
What's the game plan?
We'll be getting back surveys and continue to talk to people the next month, and Maya will come up with a master plan that will be presented to the BOS and to the town administrator.
Is there anything we can do to help?
Survey?
Survey, yes.
Great committee.
Yeah, surveys, get out there and help us get the word out and have people respond to us would be super helpful. Because we need to hear what people want so that it can go into the master plan.
Yeah.
One thing that I would like to see is the preservation of the bunker. I just think that's, that's a historical site.
Historic, yeah.
There is another one in Cuttyhawk that was built for JFK, and I think there probably would be this and all of them probably to.
It's important to understand that at some point, it's probably going to end up in the ocean as well. So there can be that emotional attachment. We could have landform, we could do great things, but I mean, we can keep everything. It's just a matter of what makes sense kind of long term.
Sure, if I may, just real quickly, because I still am a little confused on the owner of this event, right? And it certainly wasn't community park and recreation, nor was this an official town event. But I know there was a sign, which I didn't sign my name or provide my email address, but maybe if people were to sign in, I'm asking the room if they would note whether or not it would be appropriate for the board members and the founders of the community park and recreation to be able to communicate to them, via email. That might be a way for us to start looking at where we are, what our mission statement is, where our bank account is being opened, which attorneys are helping us get this stuff going. But I don't think it would be appropriate for us to email without that express permission, because we didn't own this event either. But that might be a way that we could at least start to communicate collectively, if not be the organization to help.
Yeah, so thank you for leading into that. There are 3 sign-in sheets up here. They were at the door, but kind of camouflaged. So now they're here on the table, and please ask you before you leave if you would like to continue to be part of this. is just sign in with your name and your email, and I will follow up with everyone here about what happened today and what our next steps are and how everyone can be involved. Yes.
So, I just want to introduce myself before the party breaks up. I'm the new Public Works Director, Rob McNeil. Been here about 3 months. So I'm still, I'd say, in listening mode while we do a lot of other things every day. We've had lots of discussions about Tom Nevers. Like we've had lots of discussions of other facilities around town. Fiscal 18 budget that I have has set aside $100,000 to replace the children's playground at Tom Nevers. So it was very obvious to me when I first got started in April that that was complete inappropriate use at this time. So we have sort of suspended that with the hope that we can turn that money into a master plan to affect some of the change that we've talked about today, heard about, and some of the other things we've talked about. So I'm very excited to see the turnout at today's event, even though I'm not here to hijack this, I was really here to listen. I just didn't want to let the crowd lead without just introducing myself and saying I look forward to continuing this conversation at the town level. Hopefully you can bring others with you, and we can have a lot more history lessons. I love history, and I love hearing more about it. And I certainly, as a young presenter, there's always someone in the audience who's going to question your history, so it's important to get that stuff
The
right.
gentleman that questioned the history is the author of a book that I would recommend to you called Tom Nevers Ghosts.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's quite
I just want to say I really appreciate the interest, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. So I probably will exploit that sign-in sheet, and we'll certainly look at involving you in those further conversations. So thank you.
Okay. Rob, if my company would allow it, I would go out there voluntarily with a loader to rip up that top on my day off and do the work that's necessary so it doesn't fall into the ocean. I would voluntarily do that if they let me do that. And
I'd come help you.
Hopefully,
Me too.
I will run it past them.
I'll bring sandwiches.
No, I hear you loud and clear. I think there's a lot of things that need to happen here. One of them is staff, essentially keeping the erosion from continuing. It's not as simple as running out and just removing obstructions. There's a lot of
I realize that, but it's obviously in one area where that drain was and the pipe falling in, it's just going to continue to fall in.
Sure.
That stuff needs to go.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. One other question. Where should we send the questionnaires in? There's no address.
You can do 53 Pleasant Street.
648.
53 Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
An address
I'll write it.
to,
Jardin International. JARDINS International.
Jesse.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure I get it. Park and Rec no longer has a budget, but Park and Rec still exists. Cheryl, you're head of Park. No.
It's really confusing. There's a Park and Rec Commission. I'm the chair of the Park and Rec Commission.
Which is a town commission.
It's the state, right? State mandated commission.
Unfunded by the town.
The Park and Rec department is kind of scattered through the town. We have the DPW does the maintenance. We have the events committee here at the police station. That's Amy Baxter. And then we have the community school that does the programming for the different park fields. And we have visitor services that manages the programs at Children's Beach. So it's very confusing.
That's all new over the last
4 years.
I'd like to see all this come back together under one roof.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. And all of you, this is amazing.
Jesse, did you have a question?
No, I was just making sure she would.
Oh.
I just have one question about, maybe the town select people could answer, or somebody can. I thought there was a law that there was, for a gathering of over 75 people or more, you had to have some kind of permit. Like for the beaches, they had that a few years ago. Why is this any different? Why are there 200 people out here on Sundays?
Are they all together, or are they out here?
No, they're all
like one family?
I wouldn't say it's a family, it's people playing their sports and then having some fun afterwards.
It's a baseball league.
Yeah.
Yeah, any leagues, I
And that's
believe, those are permitted through the community school right now. They have a field use permit. That is all regulated. So any use of town fields has to go through the community school to get a permit. Whether it's a special event or a regular scheduled
So what I know is the landscapers are joining another group of landscapers for a baseball game. Or are they considered a league, or are they just kind of playing together on Sunday?
Great question.
I believe they are considered a league, but I
No,
can follow up.
when I was there one time and the cops had to come and save me, they basically told the people there that, well, there was only a small percentage of the people were actually playing the game. The rest of the people were there partying and very, very drunk. And they speed, they race each other when they leave too, going down Tom Nevers Road, which is a really bad scenario. So in any case, the cop told them that if they had more than 70 or 75 people assembling, they needed to have a permit and an officer on duty.
I think it's, honestly, I think it's an effect of it being a distant park that is considered of little value to anyone, which is why they go out and treat it as they do. Because it doesn't, if you walk around it, the paint is peeling off everything, everything looks, you know, the buildings that are sheds there are rusting to the ground. So it says spray paint me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this here is the beginning of something that might create better aesthetic, more caring in the community. And then it's a line of communication that needs to be created between the people using the park and.
Sure. On that note, I look around the room and I invite you to do the same. The demographic here is very interesting. It's basically people that have kids or grandkids. And so the other thing I think that when I hear about park and active recreation, and a lot of the stories here, it's what we all used to do, right? We all used to go get involved with a lot of activities and have our friends and have parties. So I get it, like, we're not into that anymore, so it's a bother. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. All I'm saying is to make sure that everyone's informed in this whole situation and what the future is going to bring. I think it really would behoove everybody to bring their kids, grandkids to these meetings and have them actively engage, because that's who this is for, ultimately. Yes, we'll get to enjoy it for a few years, but ultimately that's who inherit this. They should really be actively involved.
I think what you just said is interesting, because a lot of the times there is a very, very group of people that live in Tom Nevers, and there's a huge amount of young families that have young kids, and they would never be able to come here at this time at 4:30 in the afternoon to voice how they feel about this. So you really don't have the true cross-section of who we are in Tom Nevers.
Totally agree.
Okay?
I think timing of like public information sessions is absolutely critical.
Also to take into account.
Sure,
Well, this is the
locations,
first-
weekends, all that
This is
stuff.
just the first one.
Sure.
Yeah.
think an overriding concern for a lot of the people in the area is the noise.
Sure.
And
I heard large events.
Electricity.
Or the fear of them, and that's it.
Electricity. How
about the noise
No,
and the
it could be
number of
just
people,
Sunday.
though?
You
Sure.
don't want electricity.
And that's a concern. So if you kind of keep that in mind.
Absolutely. No, and so, back to that point, I mean, again, I'm not here to insert myself on this whole process, but I will let you know that the town is very much interested in getting this conversation going, and I applaud Maya for all her work. You know, we met on site with a whole bunch of different people and got some early input, supported her effort with all the research that's been done by various committees and associations in the files that we have at DPW. So I think this is a fantastic culmination of that effort, and obviously with a lot of additional updated information as well. So.
Go ahead, yeah.
I got here late, I apologize. My first complaint is that to read it in the paper today, during a meeting tonight, not good.
It was last week too.
Last week. Should have been, I didn't see it last week, and I apologize for that, but I would like to have a little bit more notice. To clear my schedule. I live on Lyford Road, which is half a mile east of the park. The one complaint that I have is that the people that play ball on Sunday, they put up 2 huge amplifiers in the back of the vehicle, and they blast the music to the point where I've called the cops don't come and respond. Finally, we scream at the cops, they'll show up. They shut the music down and starts up the following weekend. Complained about the same thing when the carnival was there. I don't mind hearing people holler and have a good time, that's fine. Don't like the music. That bothers me. I'm concerned about what you're going to do with that park, that's why I'm here. I think it has a lot of possibilities, a lot of good possibilities. But I want to know what you're going to do, and like most people, I don't want to see a whole lot of crowds there because they're going back and forth in front of our property, causing a lot of problems in the sense where I get a lot of garbage thrown on my lawn.
How about a show of hands of everybody has that same complaint?
Sunday baseball.
Not
It's
too many.
not, I have to say the music festival was not anywhere near as loud as this Sunday thing. The thing was spaced out to the ocean.
Yeah, if something as big as the music festival was in Massachusetts, we need to be some compromise with that at some point.
I just have one more question about this whole noise. Is it best for us to call the cops and say, it's too much, come shut it down? Just like they had to shut down that party when the Jamaican person allegedly stabbed someone. There was 200 people there. We don't want that out there. I don't want it out there. Too many people who are disrespectful of the environment and the neighborhood. Because we are neighborhoods, even though we don't have a grocery store, we don't have a bike path, and we don't have, you know, some things that neighborhoods have. We are a community who feels strongly about our area. That's why we bought out there. And I personally want to keep it like that. I don't want 200 people out there disrespecting the life. So my question is, how do we take care of that when it bothers us that day?
Well, on the music, there could be some sort of permitting, right?
I mean, it sounds like they're just, this particular event on a Sunday hasn't hasn't applied for a permit. It's my understanding that the Tom Nevers Association has a set of parameters that any event out there has to abide by, right? You can only be there from a certain hour to a certain hour. Noise has to be controlled, there has to be, so I'm just thinking that if that gets incorporated into the permitting for that park, that should address some of the concerns that have obviously come up before, because we've got that, right? We already have a document, and so maybe to just start getting that permitted, because it sounds like it's, like I said, this is really the beginning of trying to get a handle on the area.
And so, like, maybe your concerns, if you want something done like tomorrow about it, would be, I don't know, the Board of Selectmen or somebody else, like.
Well, I'm asking you, calling the cost the solution for the immediate.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, if the same thing was happening, somebody said it already, if the same thing was happening at Children's Beach or anything else, it would be shut down right away. It's a police matter, it's a town controlled property, they have the responsibility to manage it, and when people call, they have responsibility to react. You know, it's not Park and Rec's job, and then, so, I mean, I'm answering it that way, if I was dealing with that, I would make sure that you quickly understand what the rules and regs are, you know, how many people before you have to hang a flag, have a police, get a permit, and all of those kind of things. And I'd be calling, if I was the association and I wasn't a butter, I'd be calling them 50 times a day until I got taken care of. That would be my recommendation. But it is town property. And I also want, I have to, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my face on purpose. I mean, this is a property that for years and years had a demolition derby, right? And so if there's appropriate sanctioned event on town-owned property that fits in recreation, I think everybody should strive for that. You know, and there may be a day or two along the way, if you live next to that park, or you live next to Children's Beach, or you live next to Mill Hill, there may be something that's going on there that you don't love that day. But it is serving the larger community. And I would just ask everybody in the room, you know, to look for the goodness of fixing a property that you live next to, make sure it's managed correctly, and make sure there's a reasonable level of enjoyment that's not disruptive to your home and to your family. And everybody should expect that in every town park on this island, you know, frankly. But I'd be calling the police. Right. I'd be driving in my car going to the station if that was happening every Sunday with 200 people in a kegger.
It's over 20-minute response time, and frankly, they sometimes just don't really want to go out there, and they just tell me no.
Let the town manager know.
So I agree with you. I think it
sounds like you need an Inky Mirror campaign.
They're not performing.
Well, on that note, I want to just thank everyone for coming today. I think it was very informative.